Okay, so it's day 15 of the retreat. It's the first day of the third week. 2 weeks are done. You've all been practicing very well. Interviews are revealing some very interesting experiences that you're having, and I encourage you to continue with your practice. Always ensure to check your attitude with which you're meditating. Always check. We don't want to be meditating with a mind with greed, a mind that wants to get something. Some of you have made some progress in your meditation in the last 2 weeks. Don't be so eager to get more. Don't be greedy. You have a huge plate already. Don't think that you need some more food. Consolidate. Take it easy. Take some time to digest your experiences of the last couple of weeks. Don't be in a rush to try and get more. Don't take your eye off the conditions that we're putting in place. We're putting in place conditions, that's all. We're not trying to achieve or get anything. That happens by itself. This morning we're going to come back to our satipatthana text and start to examine that a little bit more closely. We've all been noting and knowing, establishing our awareness in the present moment, where we've been turning our conceptual flow, our life experience, our normal way of viewing and perceiving the world. And we've been turning each of those moments to the best of our ability into foundations of awareness. We're trying to break through the fast-flowing conceptual stream of experience and turn them into individual events on which awareness can establish itself, in which mindfulness and wisdom, sati, sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension, mindfulness and full awareness, mindfulness and wisdom can establish so that we can penetrate the experience, noting, and we can step away and stop identifying with the experience, knowing. We're noting and knowing, using awareness and wisdom moment after moment after moment, turning a subjectified conceptual flow into an experience of actuality, real data in real time, without becoming involved with it. We've been using 4 foundations on which to establish this awareness: the body, feelings, mind states or emotions, the emotional feel of the mind, and mind objects, or the content of your experience. There's the mind states and there's the content of the mind. Third and the fourth foundations of mindfulness. In all of these exercises, in the foundation of the body, we've been using the whole body. The walking, standing, sitting, and lying down postures. We've been using the physical sensations that arise in the body. That's the manifestation of the 4 elements. We've been engaged with the in and out breathing process, specifically the sensations created by the breath as it flows in and out at the abdomen. So we're doing, and We've also been doing our daily activities with awareness and full comprehension, attending to our meals, to our bathing, to our chores, to washing our clothes, to all the little things, getting dressed, washing the face, all those little activities. We've been trying to attend carefully and mindfully to the body and the intentions that activate the body. Now, these are the foundations of mindfulness in the body. We've also been looking at feelings, the pleasantness of any present moment experience, the unpleasantness of a present moment experience, or the neutral feeling of a present moment experience. That's another foundation on which our awareness can be established. We're looking at the mind when it becomes greedy, looking at the mind when it's not so greedy. We're looking at the mind when it's full of hate, or ill will, aversion, or when it's in a deluded state. Some of you have been looking at contracted states of mind, some of you looking at concentrated, expansive states of mind. Many different types of consciousnesses that arise in the present moment on a retreat like this. We've also been looking at the different contents of our mind. Primarily, the beginning week, we're looking at the 5 hindrances, those obstructions that come to disturb us, any thoughts of sensual desire or aversion or laziness or restlessness and doubt. We've also been developing the 7 enlightenment factors. These are all the foundations of mindfulness. So, after each of these exercises, the Buddha gives us further instruction in how to practice, and for the last week that we're here on the retreat, we're going to start to turn our attention to this aspect of the practice. We've all become familiar with being in the present moment, at least for a few sittings. We're present, we're internalized, we're flipping over the conceptual flow, establishing our awareness on the objects, object after object after object, examining them, seeing them for what they really are. We're understanding the nature of the body and the nature of the mind. Some of you are understanding the conditionality between the body and the mind. Understanding that the body can sometimes be the cause and the mind can be the effect, or the body is the cause and another body sensation is the effect. Sometimes the mind is the cause, producing body sensations. Sometimes the mind is the cause, producing mental thoughts, feelings, emotions. So there's 4 things that we've been examining. When we start to break it down, there's mental phenomena, there's physical phenomena, there's the acts of causing and the effects. This is the foundation on which we need to establish our awareness. That's what all these exercises are about. That's what all the noting is about. Trying to see clearly these different objects, trying to understand and separate the subjectivity from getting into the fast flow of these experiences. At the end of each of these experiences, the Buddha gives us some instructions on how to further contemplate. We're not just bringing our mind into the present and seeing what's there and hoping for the best. We have been doing that so far, and you've seen how the practice unfolds naturally for itself. Some of you have more balanced faculties. Some of you, a faculty may be out of balance, causing varied, weird and strange events in your mind. Once the faculties start to rebalance, you'll start to experience other things as well. Of course, you can spend your time with unbalanced faculties and having strange meditations with strange experiences and weird phenomena. And that's fine, you can enjoy that for a little bit, but now it's time to start to do the real practice. You've experienced that stuff now, and we can start to move on to our further practice. There's a part in the satipatthana text which is known as the refrain. Those of you who have had a look on the board down the bottom there will notice that at the end of each of these exercises, the Buddha tells us how to contemplate. And it goes something like this. And he abides contemplating the body as a body internally. He abides contemplating the body as a body externally. He abides contemplating the body as a body internally and externally. Well, there's some further instructions for us to do. The refrain continues. The refrain is the most important part of the satipatthana practice. These passages occur, I think, 22 times. After each exercise, the Buddha gives this. We know the Buddha thinks it's important because he constantly repeats it. That's how he teaches. That's how things get stuck in your mind, by constantly repeating and reflecting it. You read it so many times that it becomes memorized automatically. The second part of the refrain is, or else he abides contemplating in the body the nature of arising. He abides contemplating in the body the nature of passing away. He abides contemplating in the body the nature of arising and passing away. This is the second stage, and we'll come back and have a look at these instructions individually. The third stage, he says, or else there is awareness, there is a body. It's simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and continuous awareness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how one abides contemplating the body as a body. Now we've used this as an example from the Kayanupassana section of the text, the contemplation of the body, but the same applies to the feelings as well, and to the mind states as well, and to the mind objects. All sections are to be contemplated in this way. The refrain helps us examine things in a new way. We examine the general characteristics inherent in all mental and physical phenomena by examining our practice. So far we've been noting and knowing things so that we can see their intrinsic nature, the nature that is inherent in that particular object. We're examining the physical sensations in the body so that we can understand hardness and softness and vibrations and tinglings, heat, and etc. They're intrinsic characteristics of those four elements. Those four elements are part of the body, or rupa, if you like. So we've been taking ourselves out of the concepts and we've been establishing our awareness onto the individual characteristics of each of the mental and physical phenomena. Individual characteristics of feeling is pleasantness or unpleasantness. Individual characteristics of the mind is sensual desire or aversion or boredom or laziness. These are individual characteristics of phenomena. The refrain instructs us to now having established our awareness on what is going on, having gathered together all the different types of raw data, mental and physical phenomena, cause and effect phenomena, we start to examine them in a general way. What is it that is similar in all of these different objects? How do we practice so that we can see that all objects have certain characteristics? The second part of the refrain tells us that all the mental and physical phenomena arise and pass away. This is a general characteristic of all phenomena. Our practice in the last week, while we're here, is going to start to shift from the examination of the individual characteristics of mental and physical phenomena, and we're going to shift our aspect. We're still going to keep the same objects: rising, falling, sitting, touching, rising, falling, sitting, touching. There's still going to be the pushing and the vibration and the pressure and the tension and the heat that's going on in the body. There's still going to be hearing occurring. There's still going to be smelling that occurs. There's still going to be seeing that occurs. But instead of turning our attention to the individual characteristics, I want you to start to note the fact that all of these things arise and pass away. This is a general characteristic of all phenomena. We're going to shift into another gear in our practice. We've moved from concepts into individual characteristics. Now we're going to move from individual characteristics into general characteristics of everything. And this will start to deepen our insight, deepen our understanding. When our understanding is deepened, the letting go process takes place more efficiently and more effectively. It lasts for longer. Not just a flash, but for some moments, even for some minutes, we can start to create space around the objects, start to create space around the content of the mind and body processes. The first part of the refrain is about internalness and externalness. This is a more advanced practice when we're turning our attention from individual to general characteristics. The noting of the objects in the preparatory stages of practice open us up to a continuity, to a continuous reality. We're directing our attention to the rising, falling, sitting, touching. We're directing our attention to the lifting, raising, moving, placing, and more objects than that as they're arising. As we become continuous and as the mind becomes comfortable in this mode of practice, we start to examine the 6 sense bases as they arise and pass away. And we'd start to do so in a more freed way. We spoke about it the other day, in a more choiceless awareness type of practice, where we're not choosing the direct objects that we're looking at, but we are allowing whatever is arising to pass away. The first section of the refrain, ajata and bahida, internal and externally. The Buddha instructs us to examine things internally, examine things externally, examine things both internally and externally. What does that mean? She's really excited. Might have to calm her down a little bit. Internally, traditionally people say internally is all about watching things inside your own body, referring to the four foundations within your own body, your own physical sensations, feelings, mental states, mental objects. Externally, well, that's about other people's bodies, examining the practice in other people's bodies. That's what the commentarial systems say. We can understand that when we're examining the body. We can become aware, we can direct our attention, although it may sound like it's very strange or unbelievable or undoable, and direct your attention to physical sensations in other people's bodies. Maybe you find that thought impossible, but you can try it if you like. Maybe you can direct your awareness. The gap is conceptual. The four elements here is the four elements there. It's the four elements outside. These elements are producing physical sensations. They're manifesting. They manifest internally, they manifest externally. You can establish your awareness internally and externally. The Buddha's instructing us to do that. That's fine on the body. What about feelings? What about emotions? What about thoughts? We can do that internally. How do we do that externally? Do you have to be a mind reader? Do you have to have telepathy? Do you have to have some kind of psychic powers to be able to do that? Perhaps you do. But we can also use the psychoanalysts' kind of method. We can examine people's physical behavior. We can see if somebody's restless, if they're constantly changing their posture. We can see their mood by their facial expressions. We can see their mind state by listening to their voice, examining their postures, those kinds of things. Of course, it's much more difficult to examine someone else's nama rupa, an external nama rupa. It's easier to practice internally. The Buddha says that we can practice internally, we can practice externally, we can practice both internally and externally. You can try that if you'd like to. It's a more comprehensive practice, and it really breaks down the barriers of me and you. It breaks down the concept of I am this mental and physical phenomena and you are that mental and physical phenomena. It breaks it right down to the fact that there is just mental and physical phenomena. They're not owned by anybody. We have such a strong identification with this mind and body process that we really think that this is mine. And the idea of contemplating someone else's mind and body process is completely unbelievable. We don't think that it's possible. But it is. When the mind starts to become concentrated, you can start to examine physical sensations and emotional states and feelings of others. Some of you are intuitive in that way. Maybe you've met people who are able to understand that. The development of empathy is exactly that. Understanding how other people are feeling, understanding that their emotional state is. When you notice that your friend is a little bit upset, doesn't mean you have mind-reading abilities, but there's a feeling there. There's an understanding of this person's emotional state. We know when they're restless. We know when the 5 hindrances are arising. We know when they're craving for something. We know when they're unhappy and disturbed about something. We know when their mind has become concentrated. We know when it's unconcentrated. We know when it's distracted and when it's undistracted. We know when there's a pleasant feeling arising in a particular nama rupa or an unpleasant feeling arising. We can develop those empathetic skills. It's not as far away as you maybe think it is. The distinction fades between the internal my mental and physical processes and the external your mental and physical processes. It's all just mental and physical processes. So the Buddha instructs us to contemplate internally and externally. Open up, broaden your field of experience, not just in the internal but in other people's. If you notice that, you can note it. Don't spend your time following others around, trying to see what their mind state is. Don't do that on the retreat. This is quite an advanced practice. Spend most of your time internalizing your practice. Have a look at your own mind before you try to work out what other people's minds or body states are doing. If you're not skillful and if you don't have equanimity, then it's just going to lead to all kinds of commenting and judging. You'll just be making judgments about others. Some people think that watching things internally means watching the objects of the mind door, and that watching things externally is watching the physical sensations that arise through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body doors. Watching the emotional states that arise from the objects that arise through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body doors. In that way we can watch mental states and thoughts and defilements and feelings that arise through those external doors, through those sense doors. And we can watch the feelings, emotions and thoughts that arise through the mind door as the internal states. You can choose how you want to practice, up to you. Try them both. They both work. You can practice in either way. Ajata means internally what is within one. What is internally stuck. Internally, like a state of tinamida, or sloth and torpor, or laziness and boredom. States of laziness and boredom, they're internal to oneself. When we're distracted by objects that are around us, we're being distracted externally. So there's some distractions externally, there's some inward kind of emotional states that are going on. You can look at it in this way. So this is the first part of the refrain, broadening the bases on which you can examine. Take it internally and externally. The second part of the refrain is all about the nature of arising and passing away. Seeing phenomena arising, seeing phenomena passing, seeing phenomena arising and passing away. In this part of the teaching, the Buddha is directing us away from the individual characteristics and having a look, examining everything that is arising. We start to examine it from the point of view that it's arising and passing away. We kind of lose interest in its individual characteristics and we just tune in, if you like. Like you would tune in an old radio, you have to tune it in and you start to observe directly in this fashion. You start to have a look when we're doing the rising and the falling. Up until now we've been following the rise and the fall so that we can discover the individual sensations that are arising. And we've been attending to those sensations, trying to penetrate those physical sensations, the pressure, the vibration, the shaking, and all the rest of it. Now I want you to start to tune in your practice to just the fact that those sensations arise and pass away. And then the next sensation is arising and passing away. In the flow of the abdomen, a sensation arises and passes away. Another sensation arises and passes away. It arises and passes away. The abdomen rising and falling is a concept. The physical sensations that are manifesting in this experience is the individual characteristics. The fact that it is arising and passing away is the general characteristics of all the phenomena. Pressure arises and passes. Warmth arises and passes. Vibration arises and passes. Start to turn away from the individual and have a look at the general characteristics. Everything is subject to arising and passing away. Arising and passing. Arising and passing. Awareness of the whole body arises. Awareness of the whole body passes away. You're not continuously aware of it. Your awareness of the whole body begins and ends. I want you to have a look at that aspect of your experience, that aspect of the touching. Your awareness of touching arises and passes away. Your awareness of hearing arises and passes away. Before we just got caught in sound. And then we started coming back and knowing there is hearing occurring. I want you to see that hearing is arising and passing away. Tune into this aspect of all mental and physical phenomena. Start to observe everything arising and passing away. We do this at the 6 sense bases. Sights, the act of seeing is arising and passing away. The act of hearing is arising and passing away. Occasionally there'll be a smell of the incense or the dogs or the coconut fire or whatever it is. There'll be a smell that arises and it passes away. It doesn't stay there continuously. I want you to pay attention to this aspect at the 5 physical sense bases. And I also want you to pay attention to this aspect at the mind door. Notice that thoughts arise and pass away. When your mind is now starting to become concentrated, hopefully you're not getting caught in the story of your thoughts. You're able to witness them and let them go. We're noting and detaching from them so that they pass away. The stories and the commentaries, the conversations that you had with yourself and other imaginary people, kind of starting to drift off into the distance. Don't get so caught in them. So have a look at the arising of an emotional state. If there's an aversion arising, make a note. Okay, there's aversion. Next time it arises, make a note of the fact that it's arising. Make a note of the fact that it passes away. Try to see this aspect in your practice. It requires you to be quite concentrated. That concentrated state will arise from your continuous noting. Being continuously aware of the present moment, noting, that will establish a mode of observation which is continuous and stabilized. There's enough samadhi for you to see that, oh, yes, you can tune in and the mind will start to lose interest in the content of the experience and you'll go deep into the structure of your experience. We're letting go of the content. We let go of the concepts. Now we're letting go of the content. We're going deeper into the structure of our experience. Everything that arises passes away. And we're tuning into that. Actually, in each mental and physical phenomena, there's a lot to examine. There's a lot to understand. There's a lot of different insights that arise just on the rising and falling. The arising and falling of the abdomen contains all the insights necessary for awakening. If we examine it closely and clearly, we'll be able to see all the different understandings, all the different wisdoms, all the different jnanas can arise simply by watching at the rise and the fall. Don't become bored with the rise and fall, and don't think that you should be progressing into some other state. The meditation objects that we're observing stay the same, but how we tune into them is different. And as we start to tune into them in a different way, new insights start to arise. And this leads us to right view. We develop a much better view and understanding. In particular, we start to understand anicca. The Buddha's teaching in the Pali texts is full of contemplations of anicca. The Buddha is continuously directing the monks to examine things by way of anicca, impermanence or change, or the fact that things are arising and passing away. He repeatedly, hundreds and hundreds of times, he says, what is impermanent? That is dukkha. What is dukkha? That is non-self. The path of anicca, of tuning into this arising and passing away of phenomena, is what leads us to understand dukkha. When we understand that all things are impermanent and dependently arisen and conditioned, that leads to a direct realization and understanding of non-self. The subjectivity of our experience is removed. The space that we've been talking about, now noting and knowing, gets created. It becomes more sustained and it becomes more continuous. What is impermanent? That is dukkha. What is dukkha? That is non-self. The Buddha's teaching is all about non-self. It's all about removing subjectivity from our mental and physical experiences, from the very fast-flowing stream of mental and physical phenomena. It's not just that it happens and arises. There's a technique. There's a nyaya. In our chanting, the Sangha has practice in a methodical way. That's what nyaya is, methodical or systematical way. We need to bust the concept flow of the matrix. We need to move beyond individual characteristics of things. And we start to move into the general characteristics of all things. When we see this arising and passing away in a few different objects, the mind will start to become attuned to this mode of observation. This is the modus operandi of satipatthana, of Vipassana meditation, of the Buddha's technique of freedom. How do we bust out of this subjectivity? How do we bust out of taking things as being me, mine, and I? How do we get out of it? We start to see that it's happening. Our meditation has taken us to the point where we can see subjectivity entering into the moment every single time there's a physical sensation or a feeling or an emotion or a thought. We take it all personally and we start to dukkha ourselves. We understand that this is the nature of samsaric experience. How do we get out of it? Sabbe sankhara aniccati yatha panyaya pasati. all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. When with wisdom one sees this, atanibindati dukhe esa mago visuddhiya, one becomes disenchanted with that mental and physical phenomena, and this is the path to purification. Vipassana meditation is all about seeing things as impermanent, dukkha, and non-self. And there's a very specific way of examining the raw data. The Buddha teaches us to examine in this way. It's a well-tried and well-tested. For the last 2,600 years, people have been looking at mental and physical phenomena in this mode and have been finding freedom. This world is not empty of enlightened beings. There are enlightened beings. How did they get there? By removing the sense of self. How did they remove the sense of self? By seeing that all the phenomena on which the sense of self is based is inherently unsatisfactory, is conditioned, and is arising and passing away. When we tune into this general characteristic of all phenomena, the mind is released from the subjectivity. Craving gets blocked. Craving, which is sewing together each moment with her subjectivity, gets halted. It's not possible. Ignorance doesn't have an opportunity to remain and stay. Ignorance gets blocked by awareness and wisdom. Wisdom is the only thing that can overturn this ignorance and craving. So we need to understand very clearly that all conditioned phenomena, mind and matter, cause and effect, are impermanent. When we see that things are arising and passing away, the mind naturally inclines to this disenchantment. It naturally inclines towards this, what am I doing dwelling in this stuff? Have I been taking this stuff seriously all my life? Have I been identifying with this stuff? Is this what I am? The mind goes into a very special state of understanding its own surroundings. It becomes sick and tired of it. It becomes fed up with it. It becomes disenchanted with it. It starts to turn away from it. It can understand for itself that this incessant, continuous arising and passing away of phenomena is an unsatisfactory experience. It is indeed suffering when it's being subjectified. And the mind starts to seek a way out of it. It starts to turn away from the matrix. It starts to turn away from identifying and finding delight. That's why craving keeps going into it. It finds delight in being that stuff, that mental and physical stuff. It turns away from it. And when it sees that stuff as dukkha, it recognizes that none of this is myself. None of this should be taken as a me, mine, or I. None of it should be held onto. All of it should be relinquished and let go of. And wisdom does this. We have a direct, intuitive insight into the nature of mental and physical phenomena. Everything that is conditioned is non-self. So we start to experience this for ourselves. We see the arising and passing away of phenomena. It leads to an understanding of dukkha. Disenchantment gets established. When disenchantment gets established, there's no I-making or my-making. This subjectivity process gets blocked, and our experience becomes one of non-self. We see things as completely impersonal. We see this mental and physical phenomena, it's not belonging to anybody, it doesn't belong to ourselves, and it doesn't belong to anybody else. We understand that we can't stop it from arising. It's going to be continuously arising. It's going to be continuously passing away. We understand that this is the resultants of old intentions. We're dwelling with this thing. We're dwelling within this thing. This thing is conceiving of itself as a person. This incessant, continuous arising and passing away is believing that it is someone, moment after moment after moment. When we see things in this way, there's a firm establishment of non-self. You won't take it to be yourself. You'll be disgusted with it. You'll be fed up with it. And the mind will incline towards seeking liberation from it. Just as the Buddha's mind did when he started to see this stuff. And he broke through. And when he instructed the monks and the nuns and the lay people to observe in this particular way, the very act of observing in this way is the cause, the result of this conditioned observation process is a result which a turning away from the phenomena. And it happens to everybody in the same way. It's not unique to yourself. This is what happens. It's like gravity. It doesn't require any external thing. That's just how it is. Things get stuck to the earth. We don't float away. When we go to Australia, we don't fall off the bottom. It's like that. It's the Dhamma niyamata. It's a fixed law of Dhamma, the fixed law of truth. We live in a conditioned universe which has specific laws. Scientists like to examine the specific laws of physicality. The Buddha liked to examine the specific laws of the mind and how it relates and how it conditions different things. Excuse me. So a direct intuitive perception of anatta will lead to no I-making or my-making. This is a direct path to stream entry. This is the promise that satipatthana makes to us. By observing things in this way, you can break through to the other side and have a glimpse of that state beyond the subjectification of mental and physical phenomena. You can have an experience of mental and physical phenomena arising and passing away in an unsubjectified state, in a state of freedom, in a state of release. These three types of contemplations, anicca nupassana, dukkha nupassana, anatta nupassana, contemplation of impermanence, contemplation of dukkha, contemplation of non-self, flow on to further insights. In fact, we'll go through it in a couple of days. There's a whole series of insight knowledges which arise very systematically within the mind of the meditator if they can just maintain their mode of observation, maintain their detachment from the process. The only thing that stops the process from happening is somebody getting in the way, that somebody is craving. When craving gets in the way and wants to experience something, blocked. Be very careful to check your attitude when you're meditating. Make sure you're not meditating with a me in the picture. Meditating with a me or I am the meditator, or I am doing the practice, or I am having a good sitting. All those things are blocking you from having further, deeper meditations. Our meditation is all about letting go of things, especially the dua. Allow the 5 faculties to do their work. That's what meditation is about. Mind cultivation, mind development, mind training. In Pali it's known as bhavana. We're training the mind. We're training those 5 faculties of faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom. They start to do their job. When we train them continuously enough, they do it continuously by themselves. They're actually meditating themselves out of existence. Don't tell them. It'll start to struggle. Craving will want to get in there. No, you'll start to see this in your own mind. Very, very tricky and very, very skillful, very subtle. It will find anything to try and hold on to try and find anything to keep continuing to exist. It craves to be. It delights in being. Because of that craving and that delighting, because of that nandiraga, that beings are trapped. Because of that, watch out for that craving for being in your meditation. It's the direct cause of suffering. It's the direct cause of the dukkha process, dukkhering. We start to dukkha ourselves. Lots of subjectivity, lots of dukkha. Little subtle subjectivities, we can kind of handle it, but it's still dukkha. Pleasantness in the experience, it's still dukkha. Unpleasantness in the experience, it's still dukkha. If it's conditioned and arising and passing away, it's still dukkha. You'll need to let go of everything. Let go of the unpleasant physical, unpleasant mental. Pleasant physical and pleasant mental. All of it needs to be seen with equanimity. As our contemplation, in the walking meditation, for example, we start to examine, we've been looking at the intentions and the physical sensations in the feet and the legs. Some of you have been looking at the whole body as it walks around. That was my practice for many, many years, especially on arms round as a monk, taking hold of the walking rupa of the whole body and watching it for an hour and a half, being completely observant of the whole body as it walks around. We establish our awareness in this way. Once anicca, dukkha and anatta start to be established, there'll be other insights that start to arise, other ways of contemplating the mental and physical phenomena. In our walking meditation, in our formal practice here, start to pay attention to the arising and passing away of each of those stages. The lifting arises and passes. The raising arises and passes. The moving arises and passes. The placing arises and passes. Drop your idea of foot and walking, that's conceptual. We can start to move away from the physical sensations that we've been experiencing. That's individual characteristics of the 4 elements. Now we're going to move into the general characteristics of the 4 elements, or of the body. Start to pay attention to the beginning and end of each of those stages. Tune into that, only that. Beginning, end, 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 until the matrix starts to shake. Until there isn't any solidity. Anicca is hidden by santati, or continuity. This general characteristic of all mental and physical phenomena is hidden from us, because we don't see the arising and passing away of things. So tune into that, and this anicca sanya, or perception of impermanence, will become very clear to you. Dukkha will become very clear to you. The fact that it's an impersonal process will become very clear to you. It's fueled through intentions. Those intentions are not you. Those resultants are not you. None of it is you. And yet, we persistently try to identify with it. Craving persistently tries to take it as me, mine, and I. When we start to establish this anatta sanya, or perception of non-self, you'll recognize that this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Become quite clear in your mind. You'll see this alien, this lump of meat and bones with its sense doors, with us getting trapped in the objects of senses, just completely floundering away, bombarded by the external environment, reacting to it, taking it personally. Try to see that all those objects are the foundations of self, if you're not in the present moment and noting. They are continuously being subjectified. And you start to think that you have a life. I am this person, I come from there, I have these interests and hobbies. It becomes somebody. It becomes somebody. When we see in this way, when we see that this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself, we start to have a direct intuitive perception of nibbida. Nibbida means revulsion or tiresomeness. We become tired of the whole thing. Become fed up with it. Get sick and tired of it. How much longer do I have to dwell in this? We're not talking about a week of meditation here. Talking about decades of this stuff. You're going to have to dwell for decades in the incessant rise and fall of mental and physical phenomena, dukkhaing yourself if you take it personally. Or you can decide to live in freedom by not taking it personally. It's just a change in your perception in the present moment. But you'll need to be good at it. You'll need to be skillful. The mind will need to be developed. That's what meditation practice is. Mind development, a specific and very wonderful way of examining our present moment experience that has been taught by a fully self-awakened being who directly knew for himself and has trained many others to be able to see for themselves as well. The mind becomes disgusted, very disenchanted with the whole process. You'll need to be careful if this starts to happen in your practice. You may become quite bored with it or freaked out. You may want to run away from your meditation practice. It's so boring looking at this stuff. I need something delightful. Get me to the 7-Eleven. The bliss of a Magnum. That's normally where we go to escape from this mind and matter process. We go to sensuality. Listen to some music or lie on the bed with somebody or go to the viewpoint and enjoy nice visions, watch movies or scrolling deeper and deeper into the Facebook, conditioning yourself by other people's nonsense. Oh, delightful. When we become tired of this nibbida sanya, the mind becomes dispassionate towards what's going on. Raga becomes viraga. You become dispassionate, become completely not interested in it at all. Our previous activities, like going to get drunk and sitting around chatting nonsense until 3 a.m, kind of doesn't interest us at all. We see it as completely useless. Even the other activities that we do, this and that and the other, all kind of just nonsense. The mind starts to incline away from that, and it starts to incline towards the unconditioned element. It's looking for an escape hatch. It recognizes that it's in a burning house, and it's looking for a door to get out of. You are in a burning house, burning with dukkha. The Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the second discourse of the Buddha, he says it's all on fire. The eye is on fire, ear, sounds, the nose, the odors, the tastes, the tongue, the taste, the body, the sensations, the mind and the ideas. It's all on fire. The mind becomes dispassionate towards this. When it becomes dispassionate, we completely let it go. Cessation takes place. We start to experience little glimpses, little flashes of real non-self experiences. Things cease. Mental and physical phenomena still arise and pass away, but the subjectivity has ceased, completely ceased. We start to experience for ourselves. Further insights start to unfold. The mind inclines towards patinisaggiya, which means relinquishment, letting go, in other words. Noting, knowing, letting go. That's a summary of what's going on by examining things in this way. We're noting and understanding exactly what is going on so that the mind becomes disenchanted, dispassionate, and we relinquish and let go of that phenomena. We've neutralized it with our awareness and wisdom so that craving can no longer find a foothold there. Relinquishment takes place. And that's the second part of the refrain. The third part of the refrain, the Buddha instructs us that we practice so that there is an awareness, there is a body, there is feeling, there is a mind, and there is the mind's contents. This is simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and continuous awareness. We're practicing for awareness and wisdom. We're practicing simply so that there is established to that extent necessary for the arising of bare knowledge and awareness. He abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world, avoiding any form of identification. We start to experience some freedom within the matrix. We use this, in Pali the word is iti. There is. We start to view things through the framework of the Four Noble Truths. There is dukkha. There is the cause. There is the end. There is the path. We start to view things, there is this, there is that. It's not me or mine, but there is that. We're practicing to establish just this bare awareness and the knowledge in this way. Don't practice to try and achieve enlightenment or try to get some results. We're practicing just to establish there is. And that's all. In our meditation practice, we're using the labeling technique. Labeling things, putting a gentle, soft word on what is actually occurring in the present moment, is a tool to assist us in the noting process. Noting is one thing, that's essential. We can sometimes use labeling to help us note. It's good in the beginning. It helps us to become continuous. You'll recognize you'll stop noting if the labeling is not occurring. There comes a time, however, in the practice where labeling is no longer necessary. The mind is present, our awareness is established, our mode of observation is stabilized, concentrated. Labeling seems inefficient. Labeling starts to get in the way of the noting. In fact, the objects are arising and passing away so rapidly that labeling is very clumsy as our concentration develops. The labeling does lead to some inner detachment and separation. It creates space. It makes available there is. Instead of I am, a space is created. There is that. There is that. There is that. Labeling is very good at that. It creates space around everything that is arising and passing away. Use the labeling effectively. Try to label one thing a second. That's quite slow. Try to label 2 or 3 things a second. When you start to become intuitively perceptive in this mode of observation, you'll be able to see many things within a second arising and passing away. Hundreds of things in a minute will be arising and passing away. None of it will be taken as me, mine, or I. There's a great space, a great detachment that opens up. First, it happens in our sitting and sometimes in our walking meditation. We come out of the formal sitting and it's still going on. Those 5 faculties have become quite balanced and quite powerful, quite developed. They're meditating by themselves. Get out of the way, let them do their job. You'll start to experience moments, will become minutes, will become hours of spaciousness and openness. Eventually, you'll be able to dwell in this mode of observation effortlessly. As we heard the other day, effortless effort. Effortless effort. That means putting forth effort without any idea of what the results are going to be. Effort without expectations. Effort without wanting anything from our effort. The volunteer mind. Just putting forth effort. Working for the sake of working. And then we can develop ourselves following the Buddha's instruction only for the extent necessary for bare knowledge and wisdom. So we drop our goal-orientated practice. The Buddha is instructing us 22 times in the Satipatthana text to drop this goal-orientated practice. We practice simply for the extent of bare knowledge and awareness. For awareness and wisdom. That is all we are practicing for. The rest will take care of itself. So do that. The opening passage of the Satipatthana text. Monks, there is this one way for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and depression, for the disappearance of pain and anxiety, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana, that is, the four foundations of mindfulness. What are the four? A monk abides contemplating the body as a body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away attachment and aversion towards the world. Not clinging to anything, not becoming upset with anything in the body. Here a monk abides contemplating feelings as feelings, ardent, fully aware and mindful. Atapi, sati, sampajanya. Those first three enlightenment factors. Activating energy, penetrative mindfulness, and investigative knowing. Spinning. Activating, noting and knowing. Activating, noting and knowing. The other enlightenment factors start to kick in. Here a monk contemplates mind states as mind states, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away attachment and aversion for the world. Here a monk abides contemplating mind content as mind content, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away attachment and aversion to the mind content. At the end of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha makes a declaration. Monks, if anyone should develop these four foundations of awareness in such a way for 7 days, one of two fruits could be expected for him. Either final knowledge here and now, arahatship, or, if there's a trace of clinging left, non-return. Certainly, stream entry is available for those who follow this practice. If you can practice continuously 7 days, well, maybe a little bit longer than that for some of us. Do your practice. That's enough this morning, I think.